Hello, Pastor Gavin Whitcomb Sr. here from Moores Mountain Church. Welcome to this production by the Boiling Point Podcast and Pastor Gavin Productions. We're doing Old Testament survey, and so now we're looking at the book of Joshua. So you ready to dig into the Word? So am I. Okay, so here's the book of Joshua, and Joshua was written, well, some people believe that, it was probably Joshua that wrote it, except for the very tail end of it where it writes about his death. But so the book of Joshua was probably written before 1200 BC because there's no mention of the Philistines. The Philistines were not a menace in Joshua's time. Uh, so maybe 1370 to 1330 BC, or I've seen some estimates like 1405 to 1398 BC, somewhere in around there. But what is the book of Joshua about? Well, it's about Israel entering the land of Canaan, conquering it, and dividing the promised land. So God fulfills his promise to give the land to Israel. Now, who was Joshua? Remember, Joshua was, he and Caleb were the two faithful spies that believed God and that they believed that God would give them the land. And so Joshua and Caleb were permitted to live, to survive, and go into the land of Canaan. And Joshua became the successor to Moses. So God chose Joshua. At this point in time, Moses had died, so Joshua succeeded him and led Israel in to take and to conquer the land that God gave them. So there are four different sections to the book. First of all, Israel enters the land. So that's chapters 1 through the beginning of chapter 5, verse 15. Then they conquer the land, and so a record of their conquest of the land of Canaan is recorded in chapter 6 through chapter 12. And then they divide the land, chapters 13 through 22. And then the final section is biographical in nature. It has the closing days and death of Joshua. That's chapters 23 and 24. So let me just give you a rundown of what happened in the book of Joshua. So they're ready to go into the land. God is ready to help them. The people believe God. They're all ready. And so the first city that they are going to take is the city of Jericho. So they send two spies in to spy things out. And the spies go into the home of Rahab the harlot. Now she has a house that's right along the city wall. And the king of Jericho gets wind that two Israeli spies came in. So he sends soldiers to look for them. And Rahab, she realizes that God is the true and living God, the God of Israel. He's with the people of Israel. And she says to the spies, I know that God has given you the land. And please show me this kindness. When you guys come in and take this city, please spare me and my family. And so the soldiers say, okay, but here's what you have to do. You have to hang a scarlet cord out your window. And then we'll know that this is your house and we will spare you and we will spare your family. And so Rahab, she trusted in the true and living God, and she was saved, and she and her family actually became a part of Israel, and she became an ancestress of King David eventually, and so she hid the two Israeli spies in the thatch that was laid upon her roof of the bundles of flax, and so when the king's soldiers came, they said, "Hey, where are these two men that came in to spy out the city?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. I saw them, but then they went that way. You better go catch them before they get away." So when the soldiers left, Rahab let them down and through a window and helped them to escape. And so God gave instructions for the people of Israel as to how to take the city of Jericho. And God told them, okay, I want you to march around the city one time a day with all your troops and, take the Levites and blow trumpets. And so one time for 6 days, and then the seventh day, march around the city 7 times. When you get around it the seventh time, blow the trumpets and shout with a loud shout. So they did exactly what God told them. When they did that, the Lord knocked the walls of the city down, and the children of Israel were able to just completely conquer and decimate the city. And so they did save Rahab and spare her. And so, that scarlet cord that was hanging out her window, it was by means of that scarlet cord that she was identified, her house, as those who would be saved. And there's sort of a scarlet cord that runs through the Bible. If we are under the blood of Christ, we are saved from the wrath of God and from judgment. So the children of Israel experienced a mighty victory. And so the next town they came to was a town called Ai. And how do you spell that in English? A-I, right? And Ai was a small town. And so the Israelites, they were very confident about the victory they had just experienced. And so they said, hey, no need to take the entire Israeli army to go against that little town in Ai. Let's just send a small amount. So they sent around 2,000 or 3,000 men there. And when they attacked the city of Ai, the men of Ai came out, and they killed 36 Israelis, and the men of Israel were not able to stand before Ai. In fact, they fled. And so, you know, the people were very discouraged, and Joshua went before the Lord and said, Lord, I don't understand. Well, here's what happened. God gave very clear instructions that all of Jericho was to be devoted to destruction, except for the silver and the gold that they found. That would go into the treasury of the Lord. But, they were to keep nothing. They were not to plunder the city, the entire city and everything in it, except for the silver and the gold. That was to be devoted to destruction. Well, there was a man named Achan who saw some silver and some gold and some really nice clothing. So, in disobedience to God's command, he took of the accursed thing. And so all Israel was affected by Achan's sin. And so that's why they were defeated. So eventually Achan confessed to it. Now, it's instructive. Joshua said to Achan, my son, I pray thee, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and make confession unto him, and tell me now what thou hast done. Hide it not from me. And Achan said, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel. He says, when I saw among the spoils a goodly Babylonianish garment, and 200 shekels of silver and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels weight, then I coveted them and took them. So he saw them, he coveted them, and took them. And so, and he hid it in the tent, in his tent, in the floor of his tent. But, maybe he could hide it from other people, but he could not hide it from God. So, of course, then they were told, okay, take Achan and his sons and his daughters and all that he had. They brought them into the valley of Achor, and apparently his family knew about it and consented to it and helped to hide it. So they were guilty as well. Joshua said, why hast thou troubled us? The Lord shall trouble thee this day. And all Israel stoned him with stones and burned them with fire after they had stoned them with stones. I mean, this is a very serious thing. God gave them very clear instructions. God destroyed the city walls supernaturally and miraculously. And so then, after this was dealt with, they went to Ai, and of course, they easily defeated Ai. So the rest of the book of Joshua talks about them conquering the land and dividing the land. And so they divided it. They cast lots to discern who would get who in which sections. And so there's something instructive that Joshua told the people. He challenged them and encouraged them to be faithful and true to God. And so he says in Joshua 24, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord." And he says, "And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell." But notice what Joshua says, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." So he says, hey, you got to make up your mind. You're going to serve the Lord, or you're going to serve false gods. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So Joshua was a spiritual leader, not only of the nation, but of his family. And he served the Lord, and he encouraged his household to serve the Lord. And so that's kind of the end of the book of Joshua. So Joshua, it says in chapter 24, verse 26, Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God. And then it says in verse 31, "And Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, which had known all the works of the Lord that he had done for Israel." And then, so that's the end of the book of Joshua. So that's Joshua in a nutshell. Israel entering the land, conquering the land, and dividing the land. And then the closing days and death of Joshua. So thanks for being with us. Don't forget to join us in the after show discussion, some follow-up and some questions that we'll try to answer about the book of Joshua. Thanks for being with us. God bless you.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, my soul? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this? Here goes the Lord of bliss, to bear the dreadful curse for my soul, to bear the dreadful curse for my soul.